Welcome back to First News as we get set to talk with Nic Horton because the Arkansas legislative session is wrapping up today, and no one's happier about it than Nic Horton, the CEO and founder of Opportunity Arkansas. Nick, welcome back to the show, and congratulations. You made it to the end of the session, and you only got thrown out of one committee meeting this year, unconstitutionally, I might add. But that's pretty good for the year. But how are you this morning?
Yeah, that's not bad. That's set a new record for me, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see if we can break it next year.
Yeah,
next
we'll
session.
definitely have to work on that.
Man, thank God our national nightmare is almost over. So you're right. Nobody's happier than me. We're glad it's coming to an end.
So what's happening in these final few hours of the session? I know the budget's got to go through. Anything else going on that you expect to see today? Activities of note at the Capitol?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be negative Nancy, but not much good, I think, probably happening on these last few days of legislative session. Now, there's a few things that I think might break our way. I don't want to spoil the surprise or jinx it yet, so I think we probably talk about that a little bit next week. But, we've got this bill, SB 625, which is going to create new restrictions on education freedom. We've been very concerned, very engaged on that. It was a bill that was dropped at 6 p.m. on a Thursday night while the legislature was traveling home for a long weekend, and then they were going to run the bill and run it through Senate committee at 8 a.m. the next Monday morning.
Wow.
And I sat there for 5 hours in Senate Education, and they kept passing over the bill. They weren't going to make amendments. Then all of a sudden they decided they needed to make amendments. And then, long story short, they made a bunch more amendments this week on the House side. It's still a bad bill. It's still something we're very concerned about. It's still a step backwards. I will give credit where credit's due. They made some significant changes that made it less bad, but it's still a step backwards in terms of putting new restrictions on education freedom families, limiting and capping some of their expenses and how some of that money can be spent, which frankly is just against the spirit of education freedom. We either trust parents or we don't, right? We're saying, we trust you, we're giving you this money. It's a very small amount of money, frankly, compared to how much we spend on kids in the public school system, and we're going to trust you and let you use it how you think is best. But this bill would be a step backwards. It'll be on the House floor today is our expectation, and that's really the final step. It'll have to go back to the Senate briefly to concur in amendments if it passes the House. So we're keeping an eye on that. And then, Toby, I don't know if you or your listeners have caught wind of this so-called economic development constitutional amendment that is being tossed around, but they have pulled out all the stops to try to ram that through this week. And it would be a constitutional amendment, the third for the session that the legislature would send out to the voters, so the voters would have a say in this in November of 2026. But frankly, it's bad policy. I don't think the legislature should refer it out to the voters. There's no reason to refer out bad policy. We wouldn't want to refer out a tax increase or something that's going to massively increase the size of government. Why would we refer this out and give this a chance to pass? But unfortunately, that's going to be on the House floor today, the very last day of session. It looks like they've got the support probably to get that out the door. So you'll be hearing a lot more from us about that over the next couple years as we approach the next election.
You know, Nick, over the last couple of months, 3 months, 4 months at this point, I know we've spent a lot of time with you talking about some of the things that have been going wrong during this session. But what went right in this session, Nick? What were some of the positives out of this session of our state legislature? Did you find some things that were good that went on this session?
There were some good things. We've done some foster care, child welfare reform that was really important. Unfortunately, there's a couple big bills related to that only have one more step to get through the House floor. And it looks like the sponsor, Representative Keith Brooks in Little Rock, looks like he's probably not going to run those bills, even though they've been all the way through the Senate, all the way through House committee. We made amendments. They're really good bills that would be good for children and families. If those were to pass, those would be really significant. But we have made some other progress on foster care. We've done some good welfare reform. I mean, we didn't get Medicaid reform, which I think was the biggest disappointment perhaps of the entire session. If we want to free up more state revenue for income tax relief, it's not going to happen until we get a hold of our Medicaid program. And frankly, we expanded our Medicaid program in several different ways. I wish I could tell you the dollar amount, but most of these bills don't get fiscal notes. We just pass the bills and then figure out how much they're going to cost later. So that's something you'll hear more about us from in the coming weeks of how much did we actually grow the Medicaid program. we're going to try to figure that out so the taxpayers have an idea. But it's a mixed bag. And the grocery tax, I think it has one more step to go through the Senate. So that's a good thing. That's something we've been supportive of for several years. We shouldn't tax food. We shouldn't tax groceries. Unfortunately, there was a decision made to limit that repeal only to the state level grocery tax. So folks are going to have to continue to pay city and local sales taxes on their groceries.
Right.
We're going to come back and try to finish the job on that in future years, but it's going to be a tougher fight in the years ahead because you're going to have to take on all the cities and counties, and they need that revenue and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
But, just to be very blunt, Toby, I mean, there's not a lot of big wins. I mean, we talked about this, maybe mid-February.
Yeah.
We're about halfway through session, and we're saying, hey, where are the big conservative wins? We just didn't quite get there. Most of the things that Opportunity Arkansas is going to be counting as wins are really bad bills that we stopped. And those are wins. Those are victories. Don't get me wrong. We're stopping bad movement in the wrong direction. But frankly, we had to spend so much time and resources stopping bad Republican ideas that there's just a lot of good ideas that really never got their say. We will be, and just shameless plug here, if folks are not on our email list, encourage them to go to opportunityarkansas.org and sign up for our non-debatable newsletter and our general email list, because we're going to be having a lot. We got 18 months, 2 years to kind of process everything that's happened in the last 3 months, and we're gonna call it straight. We're gonna call balls and strikes, and we're gonna say here's some good things that happened, and here's some things that we're disappointed in. But when there's nearly 2,000 bills filed, and we're reading as many of them as we can and engaging on many of them as we can, we're still kind of taking all that in.
Yeah, I've got the stats out of the non-debatable. 645 Senate bills filed, 1,005 House bills filed, 44 constitutional amendments filed, and 552 bills that have been passed into law. So those are some of the stats.
Which, by the way,
from the session.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's fewer bills than last session, so credit where credit's due on that, I guess. But our legislative process is so broken. We don't have bill filing deadlines. We don't have bill caps. We don't have crossover deadlines like a lot of states have to say, okay, if you're going to have a House bill, you got to get it out of the House by March 1st. Otherwise, it's dead. Moving on. We don't have any sorts of, I mean, I've worked in 25 other states, roughly half the country. A lot of states have some of these common sense, I hate to call them restrictions, but just transparency and reasonable caps on the number of bills, the length of bills, the topics of bills, just common sense guardrails that make sure the public know what is going on. And when you only meet for 90-ish days every 2 years, this is what happens. And you just have people get elected in November. They get sworn in the first week of January. And it's just this blitzkrieg for 90 to 100 days. And it's not friendly to the taxpayers. I could say a lot more about that, but at the end of the day, it's not built for us.
There can't be detail to that. I mean, when you've got that much to deal with, I mean, this is like an open border. And I mean, you just can't deal with the mass that comes through. One thing I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up, as far as the income tax cuts that didn't happen during this session, do you think the governor will call a special session to cut some taxes in the near future? Or how do you think that'll play out?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I certainly know there's a lot of folks out there, small business owners, just regular everyday Arkansans and taxpayers that are hoping for that. Credit where credit's due. We've done a lot of income tax cuts since Governor Sanders took office, and that's a big achievement and a big deal. But our message is, like, we have to keep going. We can't stand still. We were briefly, I think for maybe 2 months, the lowest top income tax rate in the region. That lasted for a few weeks. And then Louisiana went to 3%. And Mississippi, as you and your listeners probably know, just passed a bill to go to 0. And Oklahoma is about to do another round of income tax cuts. And so we have, frankly, I think, I'm afraid, it feels like we've taken our eyes off the prize.
Yep.
And we've gotten distracted by, well, we got to expand Medicaid for this, and we got to do this corporate welfare constitutional amendment, and we've got to, and just all this other stuff. And again, some of that's just the nature of this disastrous legislative process that we have.
Yeah.
But we've really lost our focus on that. So I hope, and I'm hopeful, because it looks like state revenues are going to continue to go up. We're going to continue to have surpluses. The governor has said, and I think we have to give her, her credit on that because she has been consistent. She has continued to push for income tax. I'm frustrated. I think a lot of people are frustrated that it didn't happen this session. We had surpluses. A lot of those surpluses now, that surplus now is going to new state spending because the state budget is growing more, and it's growing even more than I think we thought it was going to grow because of some things that happened in session.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I mean, I'm hopeful. We're going to certainly continue to advocate for that. And I think the governor is committed to still getting to zero.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the legislature is at. I think there's a lot of people that have said, and this mentality is kind of setting in that, okay, we've done a lot. And again, credit where credit's due on that. But now let's spend some money. Well, now let's create some new programs. Now let's let's do grocery tax and let's do other things that are good that we've been supportive of even, but we've just kind of lost our focus a little bit.
Yeah.
Is, I think, the best way to say it. So
I think that's
we're hopeful for that. I think there's a good possibility of that happening.
Well, hopefully it does. But, Nick, I did want to take a minute just to thank you and all the work that not only you but everybody at Opportunity Arkansas did during the session, covering it, making sure the public knew about it, but, coming on the radio each week and relaying all the different things going on at the Capitol back to our voting audience. We definitely appreciate all the work that Opportunity Arkansas has done this year. It's been very nice to have a conduit into the Capitol like this.
The respect is mutual. We appreciate you guys so much and having us on and giving us a chance to help get the word out. A couple years ago, it wouldn't have been possible because it was just me at the Capitol chasing all these bills and drafting bills and testifying on bills. So I have to give credit where credit's due to our team, Jay Robertson. I know that you've had on the show a few times, Will Teeter, so many folks on our team that really make the magic happen. Yeah. And I used to come on the radio and be the pretty face, Toby.
That's right.
My mom always said I had a face for radio, so it's worked out.
My mom said the same thing.
Yeah.
The voice for print.
Woman. Yeah.
So well, Nick.
But I appreciate it.
Well,
and shout out to our team.
We do encourage everybody to go to opportunityarkansas.org. Get signed up for non-debatable if you're not signed up for that yet. But you can follow everything that Opportunity Arkansas is working on through the website at opportunityarkansas.org. Nick, once again, appreciate the time this morning. Appreciate all the mornings that you spend with us. That will continue. That will not stop as we get out of session. But appreciate you jumping on this morning, and we'll talk again next week.
All right. Thank you, guys.